Hello, hi, and how are you? This is Coach Aaron Saft in the Running His Life podcast. I really hope you enjoyed last week's episode with my son. I really enjoyed having that conversation with him and kind of hearing his take on the whole process. So hopefully you guys did as well. It's a great memory for me and something that I can always look back on. So that was a special episode for me. In news, you may have seen on my social media, and I really didn't talk much last week outside of the conversation with Keegan. In fact, I didn't really speak much at all outside of the conversation. But my friend Victor Mariano passed away. Victor was suffering from cancer. Victor was just an outstanding member of the community at large, not only the trail running community, but just the community at large. And I will extremely severely miss my friend. Victor, for those of you that know him, was the most selfless man that I knew. He was constantly trying to do things for and with others. He was instrumental in the development of the Hellbender course. We were told that Newberry Creek was going to shut down, and we said, well, if we were to go out there and to put in the work and help maintain it, would it be feasible to keep that trail open? And Victor was a huge part of that. We spent countless hours and days chainsawing our way up and down that mountain to reopen that trail. I got to spend a lot of quality time with Victor doing trail work throughout Western North Carolina, not only on the Hellbender course, but within Pisgah and on the Mountains to Sea Trail. Victor was always in the woods, always enjoying his time working with others and helping trails. As I said, he was just a role model for me. I can't tell you how much I learned from Victor. And just in his silent way, his personality was such that he led by example. And I picked up so much from him. I know I have a lot of mutual friends that he did the same for. Sean Blanton, Travis Owen, all of us, we got to work side by side with Victor. And he's done so much for the races and helping with logistics and timing and just figuring things out. I just can't express how much he meant to me. And it's hard. It's really hard. But I'm glad he's not suffering anymore. As I said in social media, I got to tell him I loved him and say goodbye. And I'll miss my friend. But we continue to work and move on and try to replicate and be something like Victor, because he was amazing. So, for those of you that didn't know Victor, I just know that he probably affected a race that you did at some point if you were here in Western North Carolina or in the Southeast in general, because he did trail work all over the place and helped out at races all over. He was a volunteer, and it was amazing. So I just wanted to take a moment and recognize my friend. There's so much going on right now, and this is a tough transition but I felt that was super important. I didn't want to save that for the end because he deserves the utmost respect. But Keegan's now at college. He's out in Portland and working with Coach Rob Connor out there and the team. He'll be redshirting most likely this whole year. So he's had some Achilles issues, as he talked about. So he's just going to try to get healthy and get back on track. I've reached out to my physical therapist, Miriam Saloom, at the Runner's Mechanic, and asked her if she could communicate with Jay DeSherry. Some of you may recognize that name from the book Running Rewired, or from his work with the Mobo board. He is the developer of the Mobo board. Jay has more acronyms behind his name than any person I know. extremely intelligent individual, and Miriam's trying to get Keegan set up with him. So at least he could do like a telehealth visit and kind of talk through some things and see if they can figure out a better path forward to get him back on track and healthy. So I really hope that works out for Keegan. And I appreciate Miriam so much for helping us make that connection. Even if it doesn't work out, I really appreciate all her efforts. She's really helped Keegan along his path as well. So Keegan will continue to move forward. Ambryn is doing great. She missed a race last weekend because she was in Portland with us, but we'll be racing this weekend down in Spartanburg, South Carolina at the Eye Opener. I'm excited to see. This is her first really high school 5K, and kind of see how it goes. The girls did amazing last weekend, as did the boys. Beat some teams that was not anticipated. So I'm really excited for these kids and to see what they can do and where we go. It's a really kind of a nice balance right now having them. I get to go to practice, and they really bring out the positive and the best in me. So it's nice going to practice each day and having that in my life right now. So far as Tor de Geants go, that's going to be the meat of this episode, as it is next episode. I figured this episode I'd kind of go through my training, because this one is it's different, right? This one is a big one. Not just that it's 200 miles, it's around 80,000 feet of vertical gain. That's, the most that obviously I've ever tried to accomplish. Even if you split that in half, I've never done a race that has 40,000 feet of elevation gain in 100 miles. So, this one is a bit different, and I kind of approached this one very differently. And something that Jason Koop once said kind of stuck with me, in that he said that if you looked at, and he took Hard Rock for the instance, he's done Tor de Geants as well, but he talked about Hard Rock, and when he looked back at his result from Hard Rock, he said that he hiked 85% of the race. Yet in his training, he was running, probably reversed. 85% of the time he was running, and 15% of the time he was hiking. And he said that, he probably should have developed his hiking skills better. And that's what the approach that I took this go around. I've taken the approach that I need to improve upon my hiking skills. I came off Western States with a very good running fitness. I felt extremely fit off of that, even though the result wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't any fault of my fitness. My run fitness was solid. And so I wanted to get back to the mountains and, kind of climbing and practicing my climbing and descending. Practice with my gear and poles again, because for Western States you can't use poles. So I needed to get used to using a heavier pack once again, and using poles. And so at first I was using my Leckies, and I got to a point where I recognized that I'm probably going to have to wear some thicker gloves at some point during this race. And the Lecky gloves, while you can get they have gloves that work with the Shark system. I was kind of thinking, well, should I do that, or should I just switch over to something like the Black Diamonds that have the loops that go around the wrist? And then an email came through from my friend Will Weedman that has done Tor de Geants, and said, you may want to consider switching over to the Black Diamonds. And I had just ordered the Black Diamond poles, so I was very relieved to hear that advice from Will. So thank you, Will. And again, I'm going to get into the gear a little bit more so next time, but it is a different system than what I'm used to from the Lecky poles, so I had to get accustomed to using the Black Diamond style of pole. So with that said, I was doing, and if you can see on Strava, I've worn this one route out. just a lot of vertical gain in a short amount of time. Some longer sustained climbing, which is what we'll be facing in the Tor de Geants. Climbs are 5,000 feet. They're 5,000 feet. Now, obviously, here in Western North Carolina, that is very hard to replicate. So what I've done in that vein is gone on the treadmill. And even though like science is stating that if you go above 15%, there's no real, edge or benefit to doing a higher percentage, in the interest of time, I've been going at about 17%, 17 to 18% to get more vertical gain in less amount of time, just because, I don't want to be on there forever in a day. I set it at 3 miles per hour and kept my heart rate in check. I was kind of zone 2, low zone 3 at 3 miles per hour. But it was getting me 4,000 feet in about an hour and a half. Did a few sessions of 5,000 feet, and a lot of times I would double it up. So I'd go, a morning session and an evening session of an hour and a half each, or a little bit more to get the 5,000. So in the day, I was getting between 8 to 10,000 feet of vertical gain just hiking on the treadmill. That's great. I love, that resource, that accessibility that I have on the treadmill. I do that about twice a week. And I've been really consistent with that, and I've seen the benefits of it. My climbing has gotten exponentially better. I feel more and more comfortable on the climbs. Sure, the steeper grades are still difficult, but I'm able to get up them a little better each time because of this, this practice that I've implemented of twice a week doing 2-day sessions. Now, here I am. I'm less than 3 weeks away from the Tor de Geants, and I've backed off on the doubles. I'm only doing a single session. For instance, Monday, I did 4,000 feet of vertical gain. And that was, that's sufficient. I'm just kind of trying to maintain right now. So not trying to do too much, and just kind of taking training as it is. At first I was trying to implement, I want to get this much time, but then recognizing that the routes that I had planned were more enjoyable to me to be able to complete them. So it would take a little bit more time than perhaps I had allotted myself, but I allowed myself to do it to finish the route. And at times, I'd be super close to some arbitrary, vertical gain number. So I'd go back up just so I'd hit that number, and it's basically for my ego or for my mental purposes, complete that type of or that range of vertical gain. I've been hitting somewhere between 2,500 to 4,000 feet on my regular to medium long runs, which has been fantastic. It's been a relatively, roughly an hour 45 to 3 hours to get in that type of vertical gain, in the routes that I'm using. Sure, there's other trails here in the area that probably I could get longer, climbing in more vertical gain. But, the reality is with my lifestyle, my schedule, I just don't have that luxury to drive very far. And here where I'm at, it's only 2.5 miles to my trailhead that I use, to do these runs, which is super convenient and much easier for me and my schedule. It doesn't make me as stressed to have to drive further and further to try to do these things. Obviously it's the ideal would be to drive further, but, recognizing that my life and my schedule don't allow me to do so, I didn't want to overstress myself by, doing that too often. There's a lot of other things that I need to accomplish in the day, and still be present for my family too. So, I've been comfortable with doing what I'm doing. I can tell that my climbing fitness and descending fitness is really come along, and I attribute that to the fact that I just was okay with hiking. As I kind of started out with saying, Coop said that he hiked 85% of Hard Rock, and that's going to be probably a vast majority of Tor de Geants. Of course, there's descents and, some areas where you can run, but a lot of it is going to be hiking. So, I want to make sure that I'm comfortable with the hiking and as efficient at that modality as possible. So that's what I've been practicing a lot. Now, as my fitness has grown, I've also noticed that on the slighter grades, the lower grades, I'm able to run those more and more easily. And I become more and more efficient with the poles. Again, having to get reaccustomed to using the Black Diamond poles, it's taken me a little bit to kind of find my rhythm with them. I was super comfortable with the Leckies. I've used those for a number of years. The last time I used Black Diamond poles was probably UTMB back in 2019. So it's been a while, but I'm getting more and more comfortable with them. And with, collapsing them and storing them. And I'll again talk about the gear that I'm using for all of that here, within the next episode. But all of that has to say that, I'm feeling stronger and stronger. My endurance is in a very good place. As I get closer here, obviously, vertical gain has been, a big piece of this. I've been kind of averaging anywhere between probably 25,000 to 30,000+ feet of vertical gain each week. Again, with 2 sessions that equal to between 8 and 10,000 feet, that's a lot right there, obviously. And having my other runs, doing as much as I can. My long runs have kind of been between, I would say 6 to 7 hours. And again, a lot of it's hiking. That's why it's taking so long, but it's also about 7 to 8,000 feet of vertical gain during those times in about a 20 to 23 mile run. So getting in a lot of time on feet. Looking at 2 weeks ago, I was 20 something hours of training. It was above 25 hours of training. So I'm getting in plenty of time on feet. The big thing here, as we always talk about, is recovery and how is the body feeling? How is it adapting? And fatigue has been minimal. I still feel fine, and resting heart rate has looked good. HRV has been within range. So all of the metrics that I kind of look to for how I'm recovering are, they're in the green. And so far as fatigue levels when I'm out there, I've been balancing it enough that I don't feel fatigued coming back for even a second session of the day. I've been eating extremely well, pretty clean eating. I haven't weighed myself. I'm trying not to worry about that metric. I've just been, trying to eat clean and make sure that I'm fueling enough before, during, and after. And I've been practicing my nutrition. I spoke with my dietitian, Kendra Miller, just yesterday. We had a teleconference and talked about, what things we should be doing during Tor de Geants, and it's much the same of what I practiced during Art Loeb, making sure that I had some protein intake because this is potentially going to take 4 to 5 days, maybe even more. So protein is going to be a big piece of this. So I have to determine whether I can, pack some Boost. That's one of my favorites. It's easy, it's accessible, lactose free, gluten free, all these things plus vitamins and minerals. So, I'm hoping that I can do that. We have to check into the flight rules to see if it's okay to fly with liquids like that. I've stuck to the CIS, Science and Sport beta fuel gels. They have been extremely successful for me. I don't get sick of them. I can continue to take them. We're going to try to take over some other kind of real food options to hopefully work for me. So between the CIS and the Boost and some of the real food options plus the aid station food, that's kind of the bulk of my nutritional strategy. Am I a little worried about subsisting off of one gel? Potentially, but again, I'm going to have some other options that I can take if not. And then they have Enervit on course, which I did try to, so that would be a backup option to have Enervit and grab some Enervit from the aid stations. I've been using Liquid IV for my hydration. It seems to work extremely well for me. Typically I'm carrying 2 27-ounce flasks of Liquid IV and then about 1.5 liters of water. And hydration has been going extremely well. And I've carried a filter with me. and that's been extremely useful to refill. And then I just carry some extra individual packets of the liquid IV to resupply the electrolyte portion, or use the filter to add more water to my bladder. So hydration's been going extremely well. The 27-ounce flasks have been extremely useful. I really love the fact that I can carry that much fluid. At first it is a little bit heavy, obviously. I have to I'm going to work on my ultra pacer plan here pretty soon to kind of see what we kind of anticipate between aid stations. How long should I anticipate between aid stations to know, how much fluid should I really carry? And a lot of it's also going to depend on the weather. We don't know, at this point what the weather, especially the high temperatures, are going to be when we get to the lowest point of the course. That's typically the hottest part of the course. So I have to anticipate those temperatures and how long in between aid stations there, especially. So looking all that. I've just, consistently been practicing. Yesterday I did about an hour 45 and, got about 2,500 feet of climbing. I carried just one flask with me for that one, 27 ounces, did extremely well, took 2, beta fuels. And so again, just trying to practice as often as I can, which has been, again, it's been an extremely, good. It's worked out extremely well. So extremely excited about that. There are days where, I may start and, recognize, hey, like today may just be more of a run day. And here, getting so close to race day, that's become more of a theme. When we were out in Portland, I could have sought out, more vertical gain, but I wanted to get in some just straight runs because a lot of my long runs have been, just, a lot of hiking, as I mentioned. So I wanted to kind of pick up a little bit of run fitness. Being 3 weeks out, I could still pick up, a good bit of fitness from a good long run. So, I chose the Wildwood Trail in Forest Park in Portland. When I did it, some people recognized the trail, which is amazing. It's a 29-mile, point-to-point trail that goes straight through the park. So I plotted out a route. My wife dropped me off, and she was going to pick me up at the further end. The route was roughly 25 and a half miles. There typically there's creeks, but they're in a heat wave in the midst of the summer, and all the creek beds were dry. So I had, what I did was I carried, 2 flasks with liquid IV, and I had a third flask, which had my filter on it just in case, but I had it full with water. When I got to the latter point of the run, I just put my liquid IV powder in one of the bottles and used the filter to squeeze the water out, and had it, my third bottle. So carried about 71 ounces of fluids with me. It was pretty spot on. Temperatures did get up into the 90s. Thankfully it was very shady, where the entire run. So, I didn't have a lot of direct sunlight. I did go through all 3 flasks by the end. Took me roughly 4 hours and 45 minutes to cover that 25 and a half miles. I was very pleased with that. That's kind of what I said on Strava, very pleased with this one. I had like one physically low point, but, actually I recognized it was more of a mental low. I think I had just kind of gotten, mentally worn down. I was thinking a lot, obviously. There was a lot on my mind with, about to drop off my son, with Victor passing. There's just a lot on my mind. So I think I just got mentally fatigued, and I recognized that. So I ate a little bit more and said, let's kind of focus at the task at hand and finish this one out. And when I did, I got back to running, and I only took a brief walk break, but, for the most part, I ran the entire run, which was really cool. Not a lot of vertical gain on it. I think it was only, maybe over 2,000 feet over 25 miles. So not very much at all. But it was nice just to run and be able to accomplish, almost 5 hours of just straight running. Cause I hadn't done that in a while. So it's nice to know that fitness is still there. kind of more of an ego or mental boost, if you will, to have that. But it was also knowing that would be, it would contribute to my fitness for Tor de Geants. So, feel pretty good about that. That's my last big one. This weekend will be 2 weeks out. Plan to only go about 3 hours. I'm going to get about 4,000 feet of vertical gain. The route I already have in mind. And that's been something else that I've really enjoyed, as I kind of touched back a little bit earlier, just going into a run, knowing what route I wanted to take, because I was looking forward to that route. It's been a nice change, from looking at a schedule and being like, okay, I need to cover this much time or this much vertical gain, rather than that, just saying, I'm going to go enjoy this route. And thankfully, the route that I've been wearing out is some of my favorite trails, in the area, for the purpose that serves what I'm doing. So, it's been very enjoyable, this block. I've really enjoyed my training, which, there were times during the Western States training where I just felt like I was going through the motions, kind of just checking off a box. Oh, got to get this run in, that was not as enjoyable as this training has been. I've really enjoyed it feels almost liberating to say, I'm just going to go run this course today. So that's been a nice switch. That's been a really nice addition to my training. I've enjoyed that so much. So, the weeks have kind of accumulated. Obviously, I've put in the work. I've been testing the gear, and man, there's so many things that we're going to talk about next week with the gear, because I've learned so much about my gear, what works, what doesn't work, and that goes for clothing, that being shorts. Unfortunately, my puffy hasn't gotten in yet. I ordered the Deploy, I think it's like the 1.5. I'll have to verify that, but Black Diamond makes this like very packable down jacket. It's kind of a half zip, if you will. And again, I'll talk more about this next week. Hopefully it'll be in by next week so I can tell you a little bit more about it. But that's the only piece that I really haven't had and haven't been able to kind of test out. But hopefully it'll be here soon. So that's the only remaining piece that I'm missing for my kit. So we'll have a lot to go over next week, but it's been great being able to test out all this stuff and see what works and what doesn't work, what pack is going to serve me the best, what could potentially be my backup as a just in case. So, planning for all this and logistics has just been extremely challenging because there's so much gear that you need. As I found out from the Art Loeb Trail, having had it rained all day, being able to have multiple rain jackets, multiple base layers, multiple socks, shoes. It's, there's just been so much, to kind of learn and go through. But all in all, I'm very pleased with my training and where I'm at. I don't question, what I've done. Is it enough? I know, this is what I could do. This is like the max amount of time. If I did any more, I probably would have had too much fatigue and broken down and probably seen some more injury. I will say, I was feeling behind my left knee at Western States. It's gotten better. It's getting better by the day. I can honestly say that as I flex my knee as I'm recording right now. It's substantially. It's almost gone. That tightness that I felt behind that knee. I was also having a little bit of kind of runner knee / meniscus pain in my right knee, and that has also been that is almost gone. I'm not going to say that's 100%, but hopefully it will be by race day, and I'll be good to go. I have noticed that when I wear certain footwear, that it does exacerbate the pain in the meniscus. So I'm being very cautious about what I'm using at the moment. And I've kind of removed those shoes from my rotation to make sure that it doesn't bother the knee, especially being on my feet for this long of a period of time. So injury wise, I'm knock on wood, I'm in a good place. I feel good about things. Like I said, body's holding up well. I feel strong. I feel fit, and just I'm eager to take on this this huge race. I've been watching so many videos, and it just gives me so many ideas, and it's great. I love the videos that talk about like their failures and what they thought brought that about. Love to hear their strategies. What, especially like sleep, and what they're trying to execute so far as like a sleep plan goes. My wife and I have kind of discussed it and said that, I think I'm going to try to at least get an hour and a half to 2 hours each night. Because those that don't, like, they go so much exponentially slower. And that's what we noticed at Bigfoot, is the people that didn't stop to rest they were hampered by that lack of sleep. So, we're going to try to get a little bit more sleep. I bought a sleep mask with earphones. A lot of the times the dormitories where they have you stay is actually lighted, and there's a lot of people around and a lot of noise. So, I bought this mask with Bluetooth earphones. So hopefully that works well. But again, we're going to talk about some of the other gear that will help me get through this. So far as watches, I've tried 2 different watches, battery packs. There's so many things, like I said, that go into this race. So we have a lot to go over in the next episode. It's going to be cool. So, there's so much there in the training. There's no blueprint for 200-mile training. It is kind of a different beast. I have used kind of some back-to-back efforts, doing kind of a medium long run on Saturday, and then long run on Sunday. It really just depends on the cross-country race schedule too. Having just started, thankfully, I've been afforded good time. This weekend, I'll probably have to run after the kids' race when I get back home, and do my long run Sunday. So this Sunday, this episode will actually come out on Friday, August 29th. And this Sunday will actually be 2 weeks away from the start of the Tor de Geants, which is extremely exciting. I still have a lot to do. There's obviously loose ends to tie up, both professionally and for the family, before we go. So I'm just trying to get those things so I have a peace of mind well before we leave for this trip. And then, again, there's a lot of planning still to be done. And I think getting onto Ultra Pacer and kind of putting the course into Ultra Pacer and kind of getting an estimate for timetables is going to be the next step, so that we can do the right planning and have the right amount of calories, the right amount of fluids, and the right gear, best we can tell. So a lot to do, but I'm happy about that. And then I've got a few people finishing up their training cycles, and they're going to take a break from coaching. And that means that I'll have a few spots opening up for anyone that is looking for coaching. So if you are interested, please reach out and let me know. I'll do my best to kind of meet your training deadlines. If it gets too close, obviously, to leaving for Tor de Geants, it may have to wait until afterwards. But don't hesitate to reach out if you're interested in speaking about coaching, be it for something that's coming up or for potentially something that perhaps is on the horizon. Next year even. I've had multiple people reach out in the past few weeks about training for 2026. I've already gotten them started. Which, it's onboarding process. Basically, we set up a phone call, kind of talk through things, make sure that you're on board with my program, and I'm on board for, your expectations. And then, I'll send you an email. It's got a questionnaire that gives me a little bit more information, the waiver, and, how to kind of get set up. And then once I get everything back and you're set up, I get your schedule in, and and then we have a Zoom call to kind of go through Training Peaks, make sure you understand the platform and expectations and comments, etc. And then you're up and running, literally. So easy process. I charge $150 a month. I don't have a contract. You're welcome to stay with me as long as you like. You can take a break and come back. I've got athletes that do that. It just suits their purposes, obviously, which is really important to me. That I'm here for when you need me. So again, if you're interested, please reach out. You can reach me through my website, runningislife.run. You can reach out through any of the other avenues. Everything is in the show notes. Feel free to do so. I really appreciate that. I thank all of you for listening. I thank you for your comments, your questions. Keep those coming. There's a lot obviously happening right now, but I am so happy to read your emails and your comments. So keep those coming. I do appreciate it. I thank you once again for being a part of this podcast, for listening, for taking the time, and I can't wait to share with you next week's episode and talking about gear, one of my favorite things. Until then, my friends, keep moving forward. Running is life.